So hopefully you can see this on the screen. So, so Elaine, just to let you know, every class we learn a new expression. So this is our new expression for this week. So the expression is here today, gone tomorrow. Now, everyone, look at the picture there on the screen. So do you all know Aldi?
Yes.
Yeah.
People like to shop at Aldi?
Yes.
Yeah. What about Saba? Do you shop at Aldi? Me?
Sometimes. Yeah,
Sometimes.
sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah, I find the food there pretty good. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's kind of like you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. So if you notice in the sign, Aldi says here today, gone tomorrow, because yeah, sometimes you go shopping there and it might be there one day and then disappear the next day. So the expression means something that might be available today in this time period might not be here tomorrow or in the future. So I was looking and I found this advertisement. I found this advertisement for Aldi. So everyone, let's think about here. Let's see if I can get this to work here. Okay. So our chat question of the day. So this is again something you can answer in the chat box or with the microphone. What is something you think we do today that will disappear in the future? So think about it. Our first question was, what was 30 years ago that we don't do now? Okay, so guys, let's think about the future. What's something that we do today that maybe you think or hope will disappear sometime in the future? Now, my answer is the tattoos. You know, when people have tattoos all over their body.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm sure we're still going to have tattoos for a long time, but I hope that maybe the tattoos like all over our body, maybe that will disappear. I don't know. I'm not a fan of all over the body, but still.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So what are some things you think that we use today that might disappear, that we may not use in the future? So once again, guys, our expression is here today, gone tomorrow. So here today means it's available now, it's here now, but it might not be for the future. And so this reminded me, there are actually many expressions in English that have kind of the same basic meaning. So for example, I think it's going to work. Okay, so here are 3 more expressions. So if you want to say them with me, you can say them with me here. So here's the first one. Get it now while the getting is good. So that means get something now while there still is a lot of it. So for example, if you see something that is available, get it now. Now, maybe you're thinking the same thing, like, remember at the beginning of the coronavirus situation, everybody wanted toilet paper. So
Yes.
maybe your friend said, hey, Kroger has lots of toilet paper now. Get it now while the getting is good. So in other words, go now and buy it before it disappears. So this is kind of a similar expression because, you know, it may not be there. Here's another expression that's similar. Time waits for no man. Or you can use it like this. Time waits for no one. So that means time doesn't stop, right? Time doesn't stop for anyone. So take the opportunity now. So that's the idea. Time passes. Hey, everybody, the bad news is you're older now. You're older now than you were a second ago. Now you're older again. You're older again, right? We just keep getting older. So in this case, time doesn't wait for us. Time just keeps on going. All right, and this last one is a very interesting expression. Do you see the picture I have here at the bottom of this? This is a farmer, right? And if you see the farmer is making hay. This is called hay. Okay, that yellow that you see down there, that's called hay. So for example, horses, right? Horses eat hay. So this expression comes from farming. It says make hay while the sun still shines. So there's the sun, right? So in this case, what that means is you have to do something now while we have the opportunity. So if you have the opportunity, do it. So this expression is from England. It's an English expression, but we borrowed it here in the United States because we have farmers, and you guys in your countries have farmers too. But hay, for example, is what we use to feed animals. So again, make hay while the sun still shines. So we have lots of expressions that kind of mean do something now before it disappears, right? So do you guys have any similar expressions in your language where you talk about doing something now, or don't waste time, or do you have something similar in your language? Well, you guys can think about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember last week's expression was time flies when you have fun. Yeah, remember that expression? So this was kind of I chose this expression because, again, it's kind of related. Time is going to fly. Time is going to pass. So we need to do things now, right? We need to act now. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and move on. So those were our expressions for the day. And now let's go into our topic for the second part of class, and that is returning to word families. Now, I don't know, I know Elaine was not here last week, and I don't know if Daniela, you were here a couple of weeks ago maybe, but we were talking about word families. So if you don't know the answers to these questions, because we're going to do a little review here just real quickly. But what I wanted to talk about today, since our topic from Burlington English is talking about health, I thought it would be a good opportunity to look at some words in English that we use with the body and we use with health, but they seem a little strange. So that's what I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about. Now, 2 weeks ago, we introduced word families. So I'm going to see what everybody remembers. Okay, now everybody, we're going to need the chat box for this activity. Okay, so guys, if you can open your chat box. So in the chat box, we're going to give you a chance to answer these questions. Okay, so I'm going to put some questions on the screen, and I want you guys to use the chat box to answer. Okay, so is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yes.
Paula says yes, so everybody's ready. Okay, good. Let's go through and just review the answers, and this will be especially helpful if you were not here 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to clear the screen. And let's look at the answers now. So, but I think you guys did a good job. All right, so here we go. Number one, the root word of information. So if you put form or inform, both answers are correct. So remember, if the root word is the word that we use to build new words in English. So in this case, form or inform, either answer is fine. That is the root. So the root word is what we build on. So in this case, we're going to add parts to the word. So again, if you chose form or inform, both answers are fine. All right, here's the next one. So again, the question, the prefix of the word impossible, I think everybody was correct. It is im, I-M. Now remember, the prefix is the part of the word that we put at the beginning of the root word. So for example, if I say impossible, impossible, im is the prefix. Now the root word in this case, it looks like it should be something else because we have this I-B-L-E at the end. But the truth is the root word is possible. Yeah, possible is the root of this particular word. So im is the prefix, possible is the root. Okay. All right, you guys are doing really well. All right, the suffix of the word teacher, I think everyone was correct as well. It is ER. Now, the suffix is the part that goes at the end of the word. So in this case, the teacher is the person who teaches the class. So in this case, teach is the root. Okay, so teach is the root word. And then ER is the suffix. Okay, so you guys are doing great. All right, let's continue. So number 4, the correct answer. So last week we reviewed the ING and ED family members. And so in this case, you all said correctly, bored. I feel bored today. And that's because we learned that the ED suffix is an adjective that used to describe feelings. So we feel bored, for example. Okay, now guys in the chat box, how do you feel today? You can use an ED word. You can use any word if you want. But how do you feel today? Use the chat box. Tell me how you feel. And I guess you can be honest, I guess. So how do you feel today? Okay, I'll put my first answer. This is how I feel. I feel hungry. So Paula says tired.
Yeah.
Paula, you realize this is Tuesday, right?
Yeah, because I'm work on the weekend.
Oh, I see. Okay, I guess we'll accept that answer. All right, Elaine says happy. Paula says tired. Saba says excited. Of course, Saba, you always sound excited. It's always fun to see Saba in class. She's excited, right? Mia said happy. Okay. Let's see. Daniela, did you say how you feel? How do you feel today, Daniela? Everybody says happy. It's because of English class, right? Of course. What about you, Shiho? How do you feel today? Okay. Oh, everybody says happy. Okay, I guess we'll go on then. All right, and then finally for number 5, our correct answer, you guys were correct. The answer is exciting, ing. And remember, we use ing to describe characteristics. So for example, the movie makes you feel this way. So the movie is exciting. You feel excited, right? Watching the movie. All right, so guys, that's a little review of what we talked about for the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen because our time's kind of getting away a little bit. So what I'd like to do here, now guys, I'm going to ask for just a little bit of patience for this next part because I think it will help everybody just in understanding. So I'm going to turn off the microphones just for a moment, okay? So I'm going to mute everybody just for a few minutes. Okay, so I'm going to just take a few minutes and kind of talk a little bit. Now, again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think most of you now have learned enough words that you can see that English is crazy. I think you can see that English has lots of crazy situations. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes, and I'd like to share with you just a little bit more about the history of English. Okay, so everyone relax just for a moment. Now, don't go to sleep. This won't take very long. But I just wanted to share and review a few things, and then we'll get a chance to talk here in just a moment. So as we mentioned 2 weeks ago, most of the word families in English come from the words we borrowed from Latin, Greek, and French. Okay, now I'm going to show you a picture. Look at this pie chart. So I'm going to show you a picture to show you where the words in the English language come from. Okay, so guys, here comes this next screen. Look at this screen here. Okay, now on the screen, you can see which languages make up a big part of English. So for example, we see Latin, right? Now, Latin, of course, is the language that Spanish speakers, Portuguese speakers, even French speakers share. Okay, so if you notice Latin, the Latin language is about 29% of the vocabulary of English. Okay, at the bottom, we see French. Okay, so everybody see French there. I think Saba, you speak French, right? So notice French is a big part of the English language. We borrowed many, many words from French. Now, sometimes we changed those words a little bit, and sometimes we didn't. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, now we mentioned Greek. So here's Greek. Greek is not a big part of the English language. And one reason is because many Greek words came into English from Latin. And the truth is that's how many Greek words came into Spanish and French and other languages too. But the truth is, if we think about just the Greek words, those are words that came into English, not many. In fact, last week, you might remember, I taught you this word. You might remember the word nostalgia. Everybody remember that word, nostalgia? When we talk about the past and we feel a certain way about the past, excuse me, that is a Greek word. We borrowed the word nostalgia from Greek. So in this case, that's where this word comes from. Now, if you look carefully up here at the top, we also have words that we borrowed from proper names. Okay, so for example, when we think about the names of countries, for example, people's names. These are places we borrowed. We mentioned other languages. So, of course, English did borrow a little bit from other languages. For example, we borrowed words from Native Americans. We borrowed words from India. For example, you guys know the word shampoo, right? Shampoo. So shampoo is not an English word. Actually, shampoo comes from India. So shampoo is a word that we all borrowed from the Hindu language. So in this case, shampoo is not an English word at all. So again, this would be an example from another language. Now, what I want to talk about though this morning is this last group. This last group of words here coming from the Germanic languages. Now, you may not be able to see it. It's a little hard to see. But Germanic is referring to those languages that kind of helped begin the English language. So that's what we're going to talk just for a moment about, okay? So, but I just wanted you to see that English did not come from just one place. We borrowed and borrowed many, many words and ideas from other languages, okay? Now, we talked about that a little bit 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to really show you. So the question is, what about that 26% of the Germanic languages? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now, okay? Now, what I want to just quickly show you is that English developed in basically 4 different stages. So when we think about the beginning of English to the English we speak today. Now, guys, let's be honest here. I'm sure everyone's language, I'm sure everyone in this group, your language changed too. Think about many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, maybe even more. You probably, if you tried to read something from 400, 500, maybe even 1,000 years ago, it would be very difficult for us to read. Well, this is really true of English. So guys, what we're going to talk about real quickly are these 4 different stages. Now you can say them there at your computer there or at your phone. Okay, so guys, repeat after me. Old English. Okay, so Old English began around 500 AD. So that was about 1,500 years ago. Okay, say the next one with me. Middle English.
Middle English.
So again, Middle English began about 1150. So again, about 600 years later that English began to change. Okay, the next one, Early Modern English.
Early Modern English.
So that type of English began at about the 1500s. So again, about 400 years after Middle English. And then finally, what we speak today, we might call Late Modern English.
Late Modern English.
And that began in around the 1800s. Now, guys, I might be old, but I was not alive in the 1800s. So, but we all speak a similar language. Like if I'm going to read something from 200 years ago, I can still kind of understand it, right? Okay, now guys, obviously we don't have time to go into a lot of detail about each of these, but I thought you would like to see just a little bit of each particular stage. Now, first thing I'd like to do though is to have you guys help me. All right, so Paula, can you see that first screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Hold on. Could you read maybe this part for us? Can you see it enough to read it?
Yes.
Okay, could you read this Old English description for us?
Old English beginning in 500 AD.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, English was not one language and England or Britain did not exist as one country. It was a combination of Germanic and Norse languages, with some words and ideas borrowed from the Celtic peoples who lived in the country, including the helping word do.
Okay, so let me stop you there for just a moment. So remember when we use the word do, like do you like, do you eat? So that word do, that's the reason, guys, why your language does not use the word do. It's because the word do came from these old Celtic languages that nobody speaks anymore. So that's why English is so crazy compared to your language. So in this case, that's one example. The word do did not exist in your language. Okay, Paula, please continue.
We still have many words and ideas from this time period of English, including the ideas we are going to talk.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't know what's going on, but we're going to talk about it in a few minutes. Yeah, so sorry. Now, guys, I don't know if you can see this picture here on the right side, but again, what I just wanted to show you is the Germanic peoples lived in this part of the world. So if you can see Britain over there on the picture, and then in Germany, there was no Germany at this time. So instead, they had a group of people. These groups of people were called the Saxons. And so the Saxons and the Angles, so you see the Angles and the Jutes, these particular people are living in today what we would call Denmark. They came and kind of invaded Britain. And they came in the 5th century, so right before the 500 AD. So sometimes you might hear the words Anglo-Saxon in describing sort of early English. In fact, Anglo, do you guys see that? Anglo, that is the early word for English. So Angle, in fact, they used to call Britain Angleland, which became England. So Angle was the name of the peoples who lived there. So these people came to Great Britain, and then many of the Norwegians and others came and invaded places like Scotland, and they brought their language with them. So that Old English that we're going to learn here in just a moment, that started a long time ago. Okay? All right, let's continue. So let's see, Rena, can you read this next part for us? Can you see it, Rena?
Yes.
Okay, so this is Middle English. Can you read that one for us?
Okay. In 1066,
That's good.
William the
Conqueror.
Conqueror from Normandy,
Mm-hmm.
what is now the north of France, invaded England and became king of the country. During this time, many Latin words, and especially words from French, came into the English language. Also, the vowel sounds of English, A, E, I, O, U, began to change and would continue to change for a long time.
So you might remember, we've talked about this in class, a long time ago. Some of you might remember how English sounds changed over time, and we still see some examples of that in our language. Now, if you look over here on the right side of the screen, this is a picture from what's called the Bayeux Tapestry. And this tapestry is sort of like, if you think about like a painting or, some video like on YouTube. Well, in 1070, this tapestry was kind of a way to show how the French invaded England. So this is why we have so many French words in the English language. The French, they were not exactly France at the time. They were Normandy, but they spoke a kind of Norman French. And so they brought Latin, they brought French, they brought many of these words. And they were in England for a long, long time. And in fact, England and France would fight all the time. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to read the next one. So guys, just follow along for the next one. So this is early modern English. Now, do you recognize the picture of this person here? This is not me, by the way. Okay. Yeah, that's not me. Okay, well, let me read this next part. So after the Norman rule ended in 1154 and leading to the development of Middle English, okay, so again, Middle English was developed in this French period, England began to change. English began to change more and more into the language we know today. So during the early modern English period, people began to be able to read and write more. So people could start reading and writing. And many great works of literature appeared, including the King James Bible. So again, if you think about the Bible, this was kind of one of the first real translations of the Bible into English, like and people still read the King James Bible today. But of course, if you recognize the person on the right, this is William Shakespeare. And he's considered the greatest of all writers in the history of the English language. And what's so amazing about Shakespeare is he helped introduce many expressions and words that we still use today. So in this case, that's why he's so important. He helped kind of create this change in English. Okay? Now, our final thing to talk about is that Great Britain, in late modern English, Great Britain became sort of the empire in the 1800s and 1900s. Actually, yeah, even before that. Now, everybody, I don't know if you can see the map there on the screen. I don't know if I can zoom in here. But I want you to look at this map. Let me pull it up here on the screen. Maybe I can zoom in. Okay, can everybody see the map?
Yes.
Maybe a little hard to see. But if you notice the different green colors, so like the dark green and the light green and the different colors. So for example, the dark green is where English is spoken in the majority today. So about 80 to 100% of the people living there. So again, notice the United States, Canada, England, Ireland, Scotland, you know, looking at, you know, different countries in Africa, Australia, New Zealand. And then think about maybe your countries. So Elaine, for example, mentioned Hong Kong. You know, Hong Kong English is spoken there in some degree. India, for example. There's Russia. So Sergey, learn maybe Russia in school. Lots of European countries, right? So the idea is English has become a global language. And that was because of the Great Britain and the United States getting bigger and bigger. And in this case, English spread throughout the world. Okay, now finally, I just want to mention here at the bottom, it says the English language has the largest vocabulary of any language in the world. English has, some people think English has about 3 million words. Now, I do not know all 3 million words, so bad news there. But the truth is nobody knows exactly how many words exist in English. And some people think there are about 250,000 distinct word families. But again, nobody knows completely because that's a big language, right? Big vocabulary. And of course, if we think of English today, we think of business, medicine, internet. So again, English today, of course, has changed a lot. Now you might say, Mr. John, why did we do this little history lesson? Okay, well, what I want you to think about here, because our time is getting almost finished here. English, I think we know this, right, guys? English is what?
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Now, I hope you understand, though, why English is crazy. Did you notice that all of the changes of English changed a lot every 400 or 500 years. So one problem for you guys is that English is what we call a historical language. Everyone, let's say that. Historical
language.
Okay. Now, the reason why it's a historical language is because in English, we kept most of the way we spell. So many of the words have crazy spellings, but bad news. We don't speak that way, do we? Sometimes you see a word and it looks one way, but then the pronunciation is very different. So the problem is the history of English is we kept the spelling, but we changed the way we speak. So that's part of the problem. Now, what we're going to take just a moment here, and I'm sorry we're going to go just a few minutes long, is this is true of the history of those old words, Old English. Do you remember Old English? We talked about that just a moment ago. You see, the problem is we kept many, many words from Old English. We didn't change them. We didn't change their spelling. We didn't change their, now we might have changed their pronunciations a little bit. But the reason I wanted to tell you about this is because many of the words relating to the body and other physical characteristics come from that Old English. So that's why many of these words are crazy. Okay, now guys, we're going to go through these words very quickly, and then what I think I'll do is we'll stop and then I'll just continue this idea next week. Okay, but I want us to talk about these words right now. So is that okay? Can we do it?
Yes.
Okay, just a couple extra minutes. Okay. All right, well guys, here's our first one. Everyone, here's our first word family. Let's say it together. Height.
Height.
So remember, we talked about this with our health, right? So when we think about height, right, so that's the noun, height, so how tall you are, right, height. So look how crazy this word family is. For example, height, the verb is heighten, like to make taller. So for example, if I said I would like to be taller, I'm trying to heighten. That's kind of crazy, right? Can you make yourself taller? You probably know the word high. So for example, like high cholesterol, right? And then finally, the adverb would be highly. So for example, if I said you were highly intelligent, right? That would be good, right? You're highly intelligent. So for example, height is one of these words that came from Old English. So look at the spellings. Do you see the spelling there? Look how crazy it is. We have height, E-I-G-H-T. Do you see that right there? But when you look at the adjective, we see I-G-H. So here's a problem. How come it says high here and height here? Because it looks like the word ate. So why did we do that? Well, that's because these words used to have different spelling or different pronunciations many, many, many years ago. And that's because these words came from Old English, not New English, not modern English, but older English. Okay, let's look at the next word. And as you probably can guess, the next word is wait, right? Weigh. Everyone, let's say that. Weigh.
Way.
Now, do you see how crazy this is? Look at the noun. Wait. Yes, but remember the word before? Height. Do you see the problem here? Watch.
HT.
See how they're spelled? They're almost the same,
Yeah.
except we have a W in the beginning. So why do we call this weight and not white? Or why do we call this height and not hate? Well, here's my answer. I don't know. I don't know. Well, it's because these are Old English words. Okay, guys? So do you start to understand the problem? Many of the words in English we kept. We didn't change their spelling, but sometimes we changed pronunciation. So look at these, say these words with me. Wait,
Wait.
Wait.
weigh,
Way.
Way.
okay? And then finally with the adjective and adverb, most people think that they do not have an adjective or an adverb. Now, some people might say, could you say weighable? But I don't think that's a real word. I think it's a word we invented. So if I say, is this weighable? Like, can I weigh it? Yeah, maybe. But in this case, probably not. It's probably not like a real dictionary word. We probably just invented this word. So that happens a lot in English. Okay, guys, we have just two more, and then we'll stop there, okay? All right, here's our next word. Everyone, let's say this word, strength.
Drinks.
So strength is referring to like how strong we are. But look at this one. This one's really crazy. The noun is strength. The verb is strengthen, right? The adjective is strong, and the adverb is strongly. Do you see how crazy this one is? Strength, strong. Yeah, they don't really look the same, do they? So guess what? This is another Old English word. So as you can see, Old English changed its words very differently from how we change words today. Okay? All right, we got one more. So let's do one more, okay? And that one is weak. Everyone, let's say that word, weak.
Week.
Now, as you can see, this one's a little easier, but still it does have some changes that you may not recognize. For example, we have weakness.
Weakness.
If you want to use it as a verb, weaken.
Weekend.
The adjective form is weak, so we already just mentioned that one. And then the adverb would be weakly. Okay? So these four words, I just wanted to do this little lesson with you to help you understand a little bit why English is so crazy. And that's because English, we have lots of words that we borrowed from other languages, and we still use many of these old words in English today. But the problem is English was a very different language. 1,500, almost 2,000 years ago. So these are words that we're going to continue to practice with next week. Okay? Now, guys, I'm sorry we went just a couple of minutes long, but let me go ahead now, and what I'd like to do is we'll come back to this topic next week. But what I want to go ahead and do is to finish this morning is let's go ahead. I want to jump ahead for just a moment. let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to do next on Burlington English. Okay? So guys, for homework, I would like for you to try the next lesson, which is lesson 5, the health lesson, activity 7, which is a prescription medicine label. So let me just share the screen for just a moment. And let me show you. Okay, so I think everybody can see it there. So again, in our courses, so again, the low intermediate level and in the student lessons. So I would like for you to try activity 7, where it says life skills, a prescription medicine label. Okay, so guys, I'll send you the link in your email just to remind you. But the idea is this is going to help you start talking about how to read prescription medicine labels. Okay, and we will talk more about this activity next week too. But try to do some of the activities before our next class. Okay. So again, I'm sorry we went just a little bit long this morning, but as I said before, I wanted to share that information with you. Maybe that will help you understand a little bit why English is so crazy. But we'll talk more about those words, and we'll just look at some other words that we use for next time. Okay? So guys, I do appreciate you joining me here this morning. Don't forget, our next chat will be next Tuesday, June 23rd from 10 to 11. And